something that we already know. But as we know, as the TUT, our mandate as staff and as university teachers is to prepare our students to be fit for purpose. That is our ultimate goal. Through teaching and learning, translating knowledge, skills, and research, innovation, and development. But due to COVID-19, that has really distracted our way of doing things. As we have noticed in media, we are hearing about mental issues, stress-related matters, and I believe that it is time that we talk more about the issues that affect us all, particularly today, directing towards our students. We have seen on the news prominent refined athletes, both sportsmen and women, coming forward declaring their struggles. I hope that today we can take something from our presenter and reflect on what we are going to learn today. Now, before I start, I will introduce our presenter, Emma Els, who is a head of department for SDS, as an SDS practitioner herself for student development and support. Elma will do the introduction today for her presentation titled, The Effect That COVID-19 Had on the Mental Health of TUT Students. I'm truly looking forward to this topic. Elma colleagues will join her for further questions and discussions. Their names are as follows. I'll also introduce them. We have Promise Mohaleni, we have Fatima Qatar, we have Lynette Conradi, and then also lastly we have Tiny Gira. So these are the colleagues that will be supporting and answering some of the questions that you guys will be also raising. Then I'll go back to Elma just to introduce a little bit, and I was quite fascinated about her background. Elma Education and Training. Elma obtained her master's degree in educational psychology in 1994 at the University of Pretoria. Her master's study was on therapeutic aids in family therapy. For her professional experience, she took up a psychology internship role at Wetscopus Psychiatric Hospital in 1991. Then in 1992, she took up another role as psychometrist at Technikon Pretoria. In 1993, she was transferred to KwaMhlanga campus as a student counselor, where she worked for 5 years. In 1997, she obtained the position of head student affairs at Witbank campus. And then in 2006, the position changed to head of department, student development and support, where she is right now. In addition to the above that I've just mentioned, Elma is a strategic goal driver for personal counseling and mentorship in TUT. She was leading the 2 programs in TUT to go fully online during the COVID-19 pandemic so that the full service could continue even during the times of lockdown. I truly applaud you for that. Furthermore, Elma has been working with the mental health of young people for about 30 years now, doing therapy, working with disability students, training student mentors, and was also lecturing life skills. Over and above her countless responsibilities at TUT, Elma renders part-time practice on the following services: individual therapy, couples and family therapy, assessment for concessions at schools, assessments for road accident fund claims, assessment for medical negligence cases. Now I quote exactly the words of Elma. Elma states this: I am fortunate to say that although I have been working in the same institution for almost 30 years, I am still very passionate about my work and love the challenges and tremendous satisfaction it provides. That is the introduction of Elma. I was truly fascinated about that. Before I call Elma forward, I'll just quickly announce just one announcement to our students before Elma take over. Students will be asked questions. That this is just to the students related to yesterday presenters and also today's presenter. A student who answers the questions that will be posted on the chat box diligently will be awarded a Samsung tablet. So stay tuned, students. Over to you, Elma.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you all hear me? I just want to
Yes.
share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, students. It's really a privilege for me to address you today on the effect of COVID-19 on the mental health of TUT students. Like indicated, I'm also joined by some of my student development and support colleagues that will come in during the discussion time and questions and answers. So please, they also have a lot of experience on this topic. Please feel free to ask questions. We are here to answer. Now, first of all, if we want to determine the effect of COVID-19 on the mental health of TUT students, it is important to look at what were the mental health status of the students before the pandemic happened. Research have shown that students have poorer mental health than their non-student peers. And one can speculate on why is this. But definitely some of the reasons is that the transition from school to university is really a stressful event in itself. And stress definitely have an impact on the mental health and well-being of people. Then also, students are constantly faced with reaching deadlines. I mean, assignments must be handed in. It's tests that needs to be written. And then also the examinations in itself is a very stressful event. Then also the financial difficulties they face. Their counterparts that started working are earning a salary and they can provide in their own financial needs compared to students that must still rely on either family members or then also on bursaries and loans to provide in their financial needs. Another stressor is being a first generation student at university. I cannot tell you the pressure and stress that this places on our students, because if they fail, it is not just going to affect their lives, but it's going to affect the life of the whole family and the extended family. So yes, that is also really a big stressor. Then also peer pressure. Students that go to work, I mean, they become more autonomous and they do their own thing compared to students that come to university that want to fit in, be part of the student life and the group and things that's happening on campus. And in In doing that, sometimes they face situations that is incongruent with their norms and values. For instance, they are exposed to situations where there's substances being abused and sometimes risky sexual behavior. And all of these things can cause a lot of stress and then is detrimental to mental well-being. Also, research indicated that more than 30% of students have mental disorders in many South African universities. And that is actually a frightening figure, because if we think 1 out of every 3 students that sit in your class might have a mental health problem. And then research found that depression and anxiety are the most prevalent mental disorder amongst university students. And a study done in South Africa found that 2.4% of the student population attempt suicide, which is also an alarming percentage. Now, if we look at what is happening in TUT and what does the data tell us? First of all, we're going to look at 2019, which was before COVID happened. And there we would see, this is the data from SADAG, which is the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. We've got a dedicated counseling line for our students to SADAG. And if we look at January, we see that the call volume was the highest during 2019 in January, with 162 calls for telecounseling. And once again, the reasons for that can be that first-year students have difficulty with the transition into university life. And your senior students perhaps face academic exclusions during this time, also financial exclusions, and that is also really, really very, very stressful for students. If we look at the rest of the year pre-COVID, we find that there was a sort of a decline, and then in September, the call volume picked up again to 155 students. And it makes sense because that is the time when marks should be submitted, predicates will be published, and then also the upcoming exam in a month or two's time can explain that. Now, if we look at the type of problems that students presented with at SADAG, we find that there's, it definitely correlates with the literature in that depression was the biggest presenting problem amongst the TUT students as well. Then secondly, it was relationship issues. Thirdly, it was anxiety, then followed by trauma, and then suicide. That is also concerning for me. It is too high. Then 2020 happened, and I think that is a year that nobody will forget. In March 2020, South Africa went into level 5 lockdown, and our lives changed tremendously. Initially, I think we all thought that it's just going to last for a few weeks, and then it will be over, and then we will continue with life as we know it. But as we all know, 18 months down the line, it didn't happen that way. And we had to adapt. And we had to adapt to a very uncertain situation. I'm just thinking, you know, at one stage, we didn't know when are the students returning to campus. Then it's like there's a week that they say students must return to campus, and they have a week to return to campus. Then again, it's lockdown. Then they must go home again, or they must stay in the residences. So it's really the uncertainty around this whole situation is causing a lot of stress, and not just for the students, but even for the lecturers, for all TUT staff, I think for the whole world. And so also we weren't prepared. I mean, we had our risk registers, and we could prepare certain scenarios. If this happened, this is what we're going to do. But this is one thing that we never prepared for. And I think that makes it more difficult for us to adapt, or how can I say, yes, to handle this situation. Now, if we look at our the students during the COVID, so in 2020, we'll see in January, February, it was still sort of normal in South Africa. In March is when we went into the level 5 lockdown. And you'll see that the numbers picked up there to 175. Compared to the 2019 stats of SADC, which was the highest, was 162. And it's very interesting. April, it went down. I think students thought, well, this is just a holiday, an extra holiday that we're getting. So they weren't that influenced by the whole thing. But I think in May and June, reality hit, and they realized that, you know, this is now going to require some adaptation to the situation. But then a very strange phenomena was the low figures in July, August, and September. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's somebody attending that can have some theory on why did the calls to SADC drop during those 3 months. But then in October, it just skyrocketed, and November, and ending in December with 297 calls to SADC. So if we compare that to the 162, that was the highest call volume in 2019, we can say that the COVID pandemic had one effect is that there's definitely a higher demand among students for counseling intervention. If we look at the presenting problem during 2020 from SADC, we see that there was also a slight change. Now, stress was the main presenting problem, with anxiety second, and then academic stress, and then only fourth came depression. So immediately in the year after COVID hit the first time, we can see that stress and anxiety were the main presenting problems. And I think if we look at our role as lecturers or university staff, it is important to look at what can we do from our side to minimize the stress and anxiety for our students. Now, looking at this year, to see did it change, what happened, and this is the first 4 months of 2021, the data from SADC. And we can see that there was a tremendous increase in the demand. In January, it was 302 calls. And we ended in April. There's a gradual increase every month. There's no decrease in the demand for counselling. And it ended in April with 389 students requesting counselling via telephone from SADC. If we compare this 389 to 2019 before COVID, the 162 students, then we can definitely see that students are suffering from more intense or more problems than what they did before the COVID pandemic. If we look at the presenting problems of TUT students, oh, sorry. That one is now, I apologize, that slide, I don't know what happened to the description, but I can just mention to you, this is the presenting problems of TUT students that came to SDS for counselling. And the main presenting problem was depression, with financial issues being the second problem, second biggest. Thirdly, relationship issues. And then fourthly, bereavement, which is also something that changed. And I think that's with students now losing a lot of family members, friends due to this COVID pandemic. Bereavement has become one of the major presenting problems among students as well. And then after bereavement, it was academic stress. I compared that to SADC, and they also, this year, the biggest presenting problem once again was depression, but anxiety was just very close to that secondly, and then family issues third, then stress, then relationship issues, and then also they picked up that bereavement is a big presenting problem of TUT students currently. Now, let's just quickly look at the factors that influence mental health. First of all, we get the biological factors, and that is the genetics. I mean, we all know that certain psychiatric illnesses has a very strong genetic link. I mean, I'm just thinking about depression, for instance, schizophrenia, and then also illness and pain. And there, if we think about perhaps students that's HIV positive, or students with asthma, or diabetic students, and then also students that's in chronic pain. There is a strong link between chronic pain and depression as well. So we must be cognizant of that. And if we know that a student is suffering from illness, that we know that they can be prone more prone to mental illness. Then also disability status. Research has found that being disabled also makes you more prone to mental health problems. Then studies also found that female students is more prone to mental health problems than their male counterparts. Physical environmental factors that can influence mental health is housing conditions. And that is really where I can applaud the tertiary institutions and also TUT in allowing the students to stay in the residences while studying, even if it's during lockdown. Because sometimes the housing conditions at home is really not conducive for mental well-being. Also, COVID and lockdown, the weather conditions, I mean, I just look at myself, and if it's been raining for a week or so and it's just this grey skies the whole time, I don't see the sunshine, then I'll also start to feel a bit grey. also pollution and noise, and then also crime. If you are exposed to an area where there's high criminality, it is not good for mental health. Then also lack of resources. For instance, a lack of data, smart devices, electricity. And there we can just, from an institution side and from a lecturer side, just take this into account and see how can you accommodate students. I can just mention at SDS, we sit with the same problems. And when we had to move online with the therapy, we were faced with these problems, and we really we are trying our best. For instance, sometimes students don't have data. Then we call them. We do therapy on the phone. We have some. I had a situation where a student didn't have a private place where they could talk. So we had to do therapy via texting. So there's always solutions to problems. We must just look at creative ways in which to handle them. Then also financial problems can have an influence on the mental well-being of students, and not just their own financial problems, but if they know that their family at home is battling financially and perhaps there's no food at home, that does have an impact on their mental health, and then ultimately also on their academic performance. Then there's also the social environmental factors, the social isolation and the social disruption. Students are social beings, and a lot of students, a big part of coming to university is to socialize with friends and peers. And with this COVID and the restrictions that accompanies it, it is very stressful for students, because they feel they are losing out on a big part of being a student. Also, a lot of students, the ones that we talk to that were referred from the hospital for suicidal attempts, they would tell you, I was alone, I felt isolated. And I think that is something also that we as staff, and especially the lecturers, can try to address, even if you let students work in groups of two, that they are sort of forced to interact with other students, that they are not completely isolated. That is very important, to get students to interact, even then if it's not face-to-face, but even if it's online interaction. Then also trauma, abuse, neglect, and violence have a very, very negative effect on mental health. Then also discrimination and prejudice. And there one can look at atypical sexual orientation and being discriminated against for being that. And then also sometimes students will even, the clothes they wear, if they don't wear branded clothes, they will feel, but certain groups will be discriminating against them, they don't fit in, etc. And then also a loss of family members and friends. Like I mentioned previously, we are seeing that in the presenting problems, that due to this COVID pandemic, people are dying, and coping with the loss of family members and friends is really a difficult thing. And I often wonder, we will tell them, okay, bring the death certificate, and they will submit it, and we'll say, okay, we will reschedule a special test for you. But I think we must look at also, when do we schedule that special test? Do we do it in 2 weeks' time? Can we expect of somebody to be okay after they lost somebody dear after 2 weeks. It's just a question from my side. I just want to put the cat amongst the pigeons. Then the interventions by STS to promote student mental health. We do individual counseling. Initially, we just did face-to-face counseling, but during lockdown, we started with teletherapy. And one of the big advantages of teletherapy is now we can do it across campuses. So if the counselors of Pretoria campus is fully booked, we can let students from other campuses receive counseling from practitioners from different campuses. And that is really a wonderful thing. I can just mention, I am seeing 2 students from the science campus currently for personal counseling. Then also we present webinars on mental health. We attempt to have like one a month at least. I know that there's one of our colleagues is going to present a webinar on the 11th of August on the topic of bereavement. That's the next upcoming one. Then we also have every Monday at 3 o'clock, the Monday Student Mental Health Support Group. And all TUT students are welcome to join. And we are guided by the challenges that students give us during those sessions. So if, for instance, this week students will say we are not motivated, we will then have the next session on motivation. So we are led by the students on the theme or the topic of that support hour. Then we also have My Tutor 137 personal counseling, where students can access webinars that's been recorded and information on general mental health. We also have a Facebook page, Student Development and Support TUT, where we advertise our upcoming webinars, where we also advertise SADC and their support groups and interventions, and just have motivational quotes for students. And then in closure, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And those are the words of Viktor Frankl. And I want to end to say that this COVID came without a manual. There's nothing to tell us this is what you should do and how you should handle it. And that's why I want to extend a hand from Student Development and Support to all TUT staff so that we can work together, we can learn from one another, so that we can create a learning environment for our students that will contribute to their mental health and well-being. For instance, a suggestion from my side would be that perhaps just take 1 minute once a week during a class time to check in with students. Ask them, are they coping and whether they are okay and doing well. And then also provide this screen to them in class during that time for the students that need intervention. They can call they can email STS at counselling@tut.ac.za, and they can call SADC 24 hours a day at 0800 687888. And this is a dedicated line for TUT students. Or they can SMS SADC and SADC will call them back. The number is 31393. So we are there to assist students. SADC is our partner in this, and hopefully the TUT community as a whole will take hands in addressing the mental health of students, because it's not just STS. that has a role to play. The whole institution is having a role to play to prevent students from unnecessary stress, assisting them to cope with this uncertain situation. And with that, I want to thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Elma, for that captivating presentation. There was a lot that you've mentioned. And for me, what kept standing out is, you kept mentioning depression. Depression is the leading cause, to mental illness and also academic stress. I just want to ask something, then I'll open firstly the floor for other colleagues to also ask questions. In a scenario whereby a student is depressed and doesn't want to talk to other students, isolating himself or herself, can someone else, a lecturer or a friend, call you and say, please, can you, because I'm hearing you saying that call this number, I just want to be sure so that it's not something that you are forcing someone, can you report if you're seeing signs? And what are the signs if, let's say, you have a roommate?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you can answer.
Yes, thank you. Yes, first of all, we cannot force a person to attend therapy, but we've got an obligation if somebody is a threat to themselves or to somebody else, that we should report that, and then they should be assisted. So we can call if it's like if we afraid that somebody's going to commit suicide, for instance. We can call the Maponya 911. I actually should have added that also on that numbers. That they can come and get the student and take them to the nearest hospital for assistance. So to answer you on that one, we cannot force a student to attend therapy. We can talk to them and try to motivate them to attend therapy. But if we feel that they're afraid, that there's a threat to their life, then we should intervene and we should do something about it.
Okay. No, thank you very much for that questions. And really, I'll open now the floor to our students and also staff members who like to ask Elma some questions. And there was a question that Elma posed on us, staff members, lecturers, where she said, is 2 weeks enough to give a student a reassessment if a student just recently lost someone? Is that fair? Okay. Anyone, student or a staff member, you can start a conversation.
We can perhaps, if there's no questions, oh, okay, I see there's Matatu.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for very informative presentation. It's not necessarily a question, but so it's like not even an answer to your question, but I just want to say that sometimes it depends on students. Students differ, and you have a student who just had a funeral, not just a funeral, but a major funeral on Saturday. I had a student who had a funeral, her mother's funeral on Saturday, but still showed up to write a test on Monday, and still did very well. And that was the final assessment, the summative assessment, and she still did well. She still passed the course. So I think it really depends on our personalities and how we view things and how we cope with things. And obviously, if you have an issue, you normally don't come forth. And that is where my problem is, the same as Dr. Tembu is saying, that the people that normally talk don't necessarily have a problem. So what do you do with the ones that are quieter and you find that they're actually going through stuff. We try to talk to them in our classes, we try to have conversations with them, but it breaks one's heart to learn, along the line that, so and so had an issue, they tried to commit suicide, or, they did something wrong to themselves, and then you just missed it. You didn't know what to do. So I don't know, amongst the student population, if there can be this openness that, people are each other's caretakers, that when you really do see something, though, even if you're not really forcing them to go to therapy, but open a discussion with a therapist or a counselor to assist the student. So yeah, so it was not a question, it was just a comment, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Matoto. I have also Veronique, hands up.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Alma. Thank you so much for this very valuable presentation. The topic hits quite close to home for us as a department, and it has spurred a lot of debate amongst colleagues and students and just staff in general. I have a question and a comment kind of rolled into one. As lecturers, we find ourselves in an extremely vulnerable position at the moment in terms of our students are going through a lot, and we are like the frontliners for our students. And I think initially, going into all of this 2020, it was, I think, for a lot of people much easier to interact with the students, to pick up where the problems are. And I think gradually we found ourselves moving towards a point where we actually don't have the psychological capacity to deal with this. I almost want to say this responsibility, or this position that we find ourselves in, né? But our position in front of the students remain the same, né? And I think what's happening a little bit, because we find ourselves more and more vulnerable, because of everything around us, conditions, everything. Lecturers tend to distance themselves a bit more. We don't have that contact interface with the students anymore. We don't see their faces in class anymore. We can't read their body language anymore. It's this flat, dead screen that we are talking to, and that has a negative effect on both sides, né? And it's like we're starting to move away from one another, becoming more and more estranged from one another. I think my question is, as a lecturer, what do we do to make sure that we don't allow for a big enough gap to form, that we're not able to see the need for an intervention, that we could still, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, Veronique, thank you for that. And first of all, I really like the fact that you said that you as lecturers are vulnerable. I think that is the first step, or important step, to show students and to tell students we are also vulnerable. That is the first thing to destigmatize mental illness and not being able to cope, because the world is putting this front of we are all coping, we're all well, and that's why students feel afraid to say, but we are not well, we're not coping. So I think that in itself, to say that, you know what, we are battling, it's very difficult for us. It is so important to tell your students, this is where we are as well. So that is a good thing. And then for you to be or to feel responsible to pick up on, you know, if a student needs intervention, I think talk to them, tell them there's this intervention available, like I said, in your classes once a week. Just do a check-in to say, are you coping? Are you well? If you find that you're not coping, please, students, contact these numbers, or then invite them to contact you as a lecturer if you are open to that, so that you can refer them. Also, if you've got student mentors, please make use of those students. Let them be your eyes and your ears on the ground. They are usually the people in the residences also that will see these students and interact with them more. So they might be able, we also, as part of their training, we had themes on how to identify if students need sorry, I see my network is bad quality. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
so use your student mentors also to assist you, to be your eyes and ears on the ground, and to pick up if students are not well, and to tell them, listen, these people can help you. Let's make an appointment for you, or please go and make an appointment. Or sometimes also just for them to listen to the student. You know, sometimes we think we must do something, but most of the times people just need somebody to be there and to listen to them. That also in itself can help a lot. So I don't want you to stress about and feeling responsible, you know, you need to pick up. Just be there for your students, and perhaps I hear what you say, that lecturers now start to distance themselves, and perhaps that's one thing that you should not try to do, because we find that students really enjoy live interaction. You can have, say for instance, your classes on my tutor, pre-recorded, but then have like live question and answer sessions where students can interact and they can talk to you and they can talk to one another, to make it a bit, you know, more interactive and not so dead. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask the slide that you shared with the contact information. If you
Yes.
can, if you can please forward it to Dr. Tembo, and then I'm going to circulate it to our departments, all the departments, and ask the e-champions to make sure that it's distributed on the students' Brightspace pages. Okay.
I'll do that, and I can also please make use of your student mentors, and perhaps even on your My Tutor pages, put the contact details of your mentors there, so that students can, because students they feel more comfortable in approaching other students if they need help initially. So please do that as well.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Veronique, for that question. And I just like to also to point out that postgraduate students, we do feel also that they are also very much affected, you know, and since some of them are here, I know, since they are senior students, you know, we do feel like they don't want to talk, or perhaps the word mental, it's so stigmatized. If someone uses that word, it means that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be cleaning up the street. I'm going to be taking things from the bin, you know. And I think that word, it's so stigmatized. Young people, they tend to shy away in seeking help. Now, young person can still say, Elma, yes, my depression, it doesn't go away. And the reason my financial issues are still there. Academic stress, I need to write a dissertation. My funding has run out. Yes, there's bereavement also in the family there and there. But then how do I tell the student, all these things are here, but I want you to cope so that you finish your program? Because at the end of the day, our mandate as staff, we have the vision, we have the goal that we have to uphold for the institution, that you are here, we transfer skills, we teach you how to do research, be innovative, and then thereafter you need to move. How do I tell the student, listen, cope while all this is happening, and how?
I think that is, with showing your vulnerability also to, for instance, to give you an example, when the looting took place in South Africa, that first day I felt so depressed. I just wanted to go to my bed and just sleep the whole day. And I could share that with my colleagues, and we even shared that in that student hour, because we also had a session on how that affected them. So we mustn't have this front of, we are superhuman beings. We are all human beings. We are all human beings, and we all go through difficult times. And then the responsible thing to do is that if you go through a difficult time and you see this situation is now affecting your productivity, then you've got a responsibility to go for help. So I think we should see it. I always tell students, you know what, if you're ill, you've got the flu, you go to the doctor, because that is the responsible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got problems, and I think we must perhaps rephrase it to say, we are facing problems, or we're facing challenges, and in learning skills how to deal with these challenges, let me go to a counselor or psychologist.
All right.
So it's not a matter of, we mad, so we mad people, or there's something wrong with us. No, we are living life with the challenges.
Absolutely. And pressure, because you kept mentioning about academic stress. Hence, at the beginning, what is happening in the media that's mentioned earlier, that the sportsman, it's a lady, I've just missed her name, I think Baz, she does gymnastics, and even others, they are coming out. And these people, I'm looking at that, Elma, I'm saying, if you do sport, you are trained to focus your mental strength, right? You have constantly shown how to move from point A and win. But yet, we also have those people suffering from the same struggles. All right, we have another hand up, Mohadi.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Alma, for the insight on mental health. And I'd like to concur with my colleague, Vero, about the pressure that we find ourselves under as a result of, when you said we shouldn't say responsible, but perhaps looking after the students or being the teachers. It's quite a lot, and it was there before COVID-19. It's tremendous now in the middle of the pandemic. When Dr. Tembu asked you how we should tell the students to cope in the middle of the storm, I think if I heard you well, your final response is that we tell them nicely that perhaps if they're really struggling to cope, they need to seek help, right? That's where basically we leave things, but obviously continue to provide support, but they need to seek help with the professionals. My question is now then, do you, like the professionals, do you have means to tell the student or anyone that they need to, in a way, just to, not to say snap out of it, but to sort of tell them that they need to be strong enough to face the storm that they, comes across them. Because why I'm asking, sometimes I feel that perhaps we don't have enough of that. I agree with Dr. Tim. We need, even the students, it may sound harsh or insensitive, but we need to find ways to sort of encourage the students to learn to swim. They are thrown in a big sea, they don't know how to swim, but in order for them to survive, they need to just try to learn to swim. We need that, they need that. But how do we do that? And I often find myself in a very difficult position where students sometimes come, they are complaining. I work a lot with work students. They're frustrated by work environment because it's not like, back at the university. And oftentimes I tell them it's not the same as here. Here it's more like, they feel like we've got people that are looking after, like guardians. But in the industry, you have colleagues, there are deadlines, there are tasks, goals that you need to meet. And they struggle with that. And when they come back, I can't say, sorry, it's going to go, or shame. I have to tell them, go back and learn to swim, because you'll find yourself in a big river or a sea. Do you guys on your side do enough to really sort of train them? I had a very interesting topic today. It's a term, I didn't know about it. There is a book, I believe, Adversity Paradox. Apparently the book, it was a conversation between Will Smith and Kevin Hart. They were talking about how, Kevin Hart's upbringing, it was tough, but eventually he succeeded. So he's scared that perhaps his children may not be as good as he is because things are not challenging. He doesn't have, they don't have a lot of adversity, in their life. Then it left me pondering that, is it what we really need, like challenges? Do they strengthen us? Also, your closing line, you said something like, if we find ourselves in a situation that we can't change, we are challenged to change ourselves, right? So how do you introduce that into students that are facing challenges?
Yes, are we doing enough? I don't know. I don't know if we can say yes. When is enough ever enough? But that is what we also try to achieve through our webinars, to give students the skills to cope, because that is the reality. Life is not easy. There's challenges, there's difficulties, and our aim is to give them the skills or the tools so that they can handle these difficulties and be okay at the end of the day. We also have an upcoming webinar on I think it's the 22nd of September, and the topic is turning lemons into lemonade, where we are going to look specifically at, how to cope with the difficult situations and to make the best of it and to survive. Because, that's the only way to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miranda and Elma, for that response. I'll take only one more question, and then we will do that. We'll then do the final remarks. I'm seeing there's a hand up. I'm seeing a hand up. I'm not sure whether it's an old hand.
No, yes, it's a hand from me.
Okay.
Yes, I'm also a practitioner at SDS. I just wanted to also emphasize on the discussion, especially I'm glad that you mentioned in a way mental health is stigmatized. That is very true. And in that, if you can have awarenesses like this to educate our students, educate our lecturers, to say going for help is not only when you are out of balance, but also to learn with your coping skills. Like we have what we call psychological flexibility. This is where you learn to adapt to every situation, to be able to function regardless of what is happening in your life. We do teach students coping skills, like how to be resilient and all that. So if we can get the message out there to say going for a mental health session, it's not that you are sick, you are crazy, but also to develop yourself, to develop your coping skills. This is what we are trying to do with students also in our support hour, to teach them coping skills, not only focus on them when they are out of balance, when they are sick already, but also to teach them to say, should you meet a situation like this, here are some coping skills. So if we can get the word out there for students to be able to, yes.
I like that very much, the coping skills. I think that is a message that we lecturers will need to put forward. David, do you have another question? David Mungezi.
Hello, Doctor. Well,
yes.
The question is for the competition. I'm posting them here.
Okay. So students, there are questions that they will be posted. So the instructions will be provided there. And if you answer the question diligently based on Elma's presentation, there is a question there. And also from the presenters yesterday, you will win the latest, I hope it's the latest, Dr. Mabena, Samsung tablet. Okay, I would like to say thank you so much, Elma, for your captivating talk. I've learned a lot, and I think for me, it's the depression, how you have hierarchy, the bullets, the main one is depression, and then followed by, of course, finance, because this is an issue that we're all struggling, especially our students as well, with the academic stress. Everything's are changing every now and then. The calendar is changed. We are waiting for another one, and the next week it will be another one. It doesn't end. Hence my main core question, and I think one of your colleagues also elaborated on it. How do we cope? Because we don't know when things are going to change. We have been vaccinated, the numbers are still there. And our students, we are running a race. We are running, it's nonstop. And thank you very much. And also, I've heard you when you said that we cannot force someone, but also if the signs are way too alarming, I'm also comforted to hear that, you will come and intervene, in such a situation like that. Because as it is, the students are shying away, even our own postgraduate students, they are shying away from the word mental. And I like your colleagues, the way she put it, that, educating yourself, it's not, don't wait until you are off balance. Even if you're off balance, the department is there, SDS, to support you. So students who are here, my message to you, I would say, go out there and get information. We are also here as lecturers so that we can get information, so that we can understand you better in class. We are also affected by seeing you guys at times not making it, a failing, or not meeting your potential. Hence now these kinds of conversation, we have to ignite them every now and then. And thank you for your department that is running this session every now and then. I was talking to the Dean of Teaching and Learning yesterday, even today, this morning. I said, I'm excited to hear your talk. And then I said to Yolanda Havenga, you know what? I think what I want, because I was so energetic, I want people to be helped. Everyone must be helped at once. And then I said this to her. What I want is to take the students by hand and take the SDS and put them by levels. I take the BSCs and put, that is how I was feeling. I was so anxious, but I'm also comforted that you are able to come in when you are called in. If there's a problem, can you come in and cancel a class of, let's say, 30 students if their classmate has passed on, things like that, that I think that after this conversation, we will proceed and talk about those kinds of things. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, colleagues, for attending this today's session on Friday, on the 6th of August, there is another session that will be hosted by Dr. Lizzie Monyansi. Students will be presenting based on the main theme of the Science Week. Even there will be prizes. So it's going to be exciting. And students, you are invited to also attend. The winner for the tablet will also be presented there. Elma, this is how we call our students. We have to give something out. All
Good
right.
initiative.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We will see you again and on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks, Dr. V.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you,
Thank
students.
you. Thank you, Dr. T.
Thank you, Dr. Mabena. Yeah, when I stop the recording now.